I will disclose that whenever I switch topics, whenever I move from a technical thing into a broader space, I tend to lose subscribers, lose support, lose the the focus of the community found in the comments and so forth, and engage the passion of maybe a small subset. And so that's challenging, but yes, it may be clear to a few of you that what I'm trying to do is much, 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 much bigger than myself. It's bigger than engineering. I can tell you from deep inside me with all the honesty, I'm if I'm ever claiming something will benefit you or it's valuable to have this information, it is coming from direct real life experience. It is not coming from some silly ideas that I just had. I've circumnavigated the planet, keep that in mind. And I can see some of the reality, some things that I thought were true growing up, and then I arrived in this world of capitalist marketing and a whole lot of lies and a whole lot of politics that said, "Oh, that's not true." Um, there are places in the world where it is the places that are growing the fastest, the places that are developing and innovating, the places where you can see that the truths you found in engineering playing out in real life. This is a rough depiction of what I've seen in the world, and looking back into history, is that technology in the 1900s, applying technology was very closely mapped to our needs in the society. And we all know that you can gain wealth, start a business, or expand a beautiful technology by solving a problem. So I think those problems were very closely mapped to the needs. This was Henry Ford. This is Alex Bell. This is, who else? It's also the Wright brothers. Okay. And as the country developed, as wealth increased, as more abundance spread throughout the United States, then the picture of using tech to meet needs became more convoluted. Okay. Money becomes a high priority in the business. IP becomes a high priority. The legal system is a barrier or an opportunity or all of the above. Marketing becomes a crucial. These are intrinsic requirements before a technology meets a need to produce value. Well, Henry Ford kept the business in the family, and his great-grandson, William Clay Ford, is the gentleman that I met. I was working at the Toyota's engine design department in Ann Arbor. I think I traveled to Detroit to see him speak, and after his presentation, my hand shot up, and I was the closest I had ever been to the encounter with real engineering business that changes the world, right? And when I asked my question, he had no wisdom to share anymore. I asked, how can I ask one question? How can I take 30 seconds to extract the best information that I can? I said, what's your favorite book, Mr. Ford? And he said, I don't really have an answer for you. Next question. And with all the other things I've learned in my experience around the world and in business, is that if he had any value to provide, any wisdom and knowledge, it was no longer connected to technology at all, because he has to oversee all these other aspects in order to maintain that wealth. So that was 2012, and in 2013, I left Toyota so that I could become an entrepreneur, so that I could use technology to change the world. And then For the next few years, I was on the journey to ask how, where is the truth? How does technology actually help the world? How do we gain wealth sufficient to have the power to expand technology in ways that actually help the world, right? Oh, and is it possible, or is that just a fairy tale? Because if a son of a technician, of a draftsman with just a 2-year degree, growing up in the suburbs of St. Louis, where it's hard enough just to keep track of one bicycle, is it possible for that person to transcend into the world of really having influence and making an impact? Or do you need to have the privilege, such as the privilege of the son of the son of the son of Henry Ford, in order to steer technology at all? By the time I was 22, I was fairly well convinced that you need to, as an engineer, step away from the technology and invest knowledge and experience in networking and knowledge of the financial system in order to raise money, or basically pursue wealth as the first step to have any technology making an impact. But I was somewhat fearful that if I went to school, quit the job, and went to get an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, that I might lose my center, or I might lose my edge in understanding technology, because I could see technology advancing rapidly. I could see that I didn't fully understand, for example, the system that runs the engine in these cars where we drive them every day, the ECU, engine control unit, and the sensors behind it, and how all this works. And I thought, I'll need to be more patient and experience the business knowledge piecewise while I continue to improve my knowledge of technology. When I went to grad school, something interesting happened. I relocated to Texas, and I met very, very few Texans. When I got there, I was launched into coursework very quickly, and so I'm in the master's program. That means you're taking grad school courses with people that are grad students. They are a whole different population than the undergraduate students. And in mechanical engineering, this was mostly foreigners that were in the United States to get their graduate degree, to go to a world famous university, a research university, and get a highly coveted world-class engineering education. So in grad school, the first friends that I met were Brazilians, and that's who I hung around, because I was taking courses with the Brazilian guys. They were around my age, and many of them speak 3 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, English, and some of them German, and some of the most brilliant guys of their generation from Brazil across the whole country. After graduating, after those 2 years of my master's, then I traveled to Brazil. This is Operation Macaco. Every time I would make a trip, I tried to make the best use of my time, and I had 3 months in this country. And so between my friends from grad school, they lived all across the country, and I made what is equivalent to a trip of Houston, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and more in these 3 months. And I stayed in the homes of these actual friends of mine, and I got to see all of their lifestyles, and I was treated like family by their moms making delicious food, and I got to see local, really amazing, authentic experiences in Brazil. But I want to show you one of my friends, Renato, when I was hanging out with him. He's from the state of Pernambuco, which is a more rural state and more populous, and the folks there are kind of seen as the hillbillies, the way we look at folks from the Ozarks in Missouri, where I am familiar. This state is less economically developed, but their culture is much more thriving, which is somewhat of a trend I see around the world. He would go on to answer one of my lifelong questions, which was, can an individual in modern times transcend from one class of society to any other that they wish to in one lifetime? He now lives in Canada. He's a computer engineer, and I got to experience a little bit of his life. After graduation in 2016, so I came to visit his apartment, which is a very simple apartment on like floor 10 of a high rise. And looking out this window, I could witness two worlds where he was in the middle of stepping between them. I looked out this window and it brought me to tears. I took this photo, and you can see on one side, it's the favelas where some people spend their entire life. They're engineering every day just to have clean water and to dispose of their wastewater. And that's all individuals. And then on the other half of the photo, we have the first world. So it's the third world and the first world right there in one exact place, staring back at you. So my Brazilian friends each have a miracle in their life story. They, through technology, completely changed their life circumstances and enhanced the circumstances for their family, made a complete transcending path from one way of life to another. And they had to pivot. There's another formula to be able to do this. They started with the technology. They had to get the education necessary to get the right credentials, to be accepted along a certain path that has been to some degree laid out without too much risk, and then they can meet their own needs as abundantly as they need, as well as for one family. And so Renato can provide for his child now and his wife, and have whichever lifestyle he needed. But there's some deviation from the pure using technology to meet needs, and this is a path that does not really go further to make a change for more than your family and the generations to follow. And they understand that it is extremely risky. I don't discredit them at all for not trying to move broader, because they certainly have the power. With this education and these credentials and their intelligence, they have the power to impact many, many, many lives. But there's another factor, and that lives all around here, and that is to avoid corruption. So corruption in Brazil is not just a vague, strange word. They can see it at play from the day that they're born until the day they die. It's very tangible, and you can see where the corruption is doing its business, and you have to step around that. If you step through it, then you can put your life at risk, or you can put your future at risk. At this stage, only a few of my Brazilian engineer friends are still living in Brazil, and they're in the most developed place, that's São Paulo, the city of São Paulo in the state of São Paulo. And they also are close friends with the developers of what we would call the PayPal of Brazil. And so technology in this environment with sufficient wealth and sufficient modernization of the demands of the society, they can meet needs and create a whole millionaire story um, just like PayPal did in the USA. And the collectively, everything that I've observed between Brazil today and the United States is that Brazil is an environment right now that is just like the 1970s in the USA. The way that multimedia is spread, the way that there are still abundant needs to be met to keep people safe and fed, and infrastructure to be built. And there's an abundant, along with that wealth, opportunities to deviate from an honest path in exchange for more wealth. And there's plenty of places where greed can have you deviate from the truest north vector for lots of nice opportunities. But there's the observations I made are abundant. I could write a whole book on how the lifestyle and the way, the mechanisms where business and technology fits into society, and what path you would take then as an individual wanting to become successful. It's such a mirror to all the stories that my parents told me about their lifestyle in the 70s, growing up in the Midwest of the US. I also noticed this relationship between wherever you came from, where you grew up, and the conditions. There's more abundance and less abundance. And if you came from a place of very high abundance, then your risk tolerance is much, much, much less, unless you this is zero risk tolerance, and this is a lot of risk tolerance. The people in the United States in general, across the board, in my opinion, has so much abundance that, let's say there's this bar called entrepreneur, the entrepreneur at heart, not about the job that you took or your title, or whether you're running a business or just doing labor in a business. This is a line that's not really defined in any textbook anywhere. This entrepreneur type of person, it means that their average decisions and their average challenges accept some amount of risk that feels risky to a secure person who does not want to see changes. Yeah, we could just find entrepreneur in this case as someone that is more inclined to produce changes than less inclined and wanting to keep things the same. Sorry, I drew this line in the wrong way. You can have an ordinary person that's behaving like an entrepreneur in my eyes, in the way they do life, after this amount of risk tolerance, and under this amount of risk tolerance, you would not make any decisions sufficiently risky enough to play the game of entrepreneurship. Okay, now from my perspective, the whole span of people living in the USA has become so intolerant of risks that you will not find a real entrepreneur in the heart of even the people we call entrepreneurs. What I'm saying is, if you read a book about Henry Ford or any of the famous entrepreneurs of the past who made big changes, their level of taking risks is not even found in the most prestigious and the most spotlighted entrepreneurs of the greatest businesses of the US today. And of course, this has to do with scaling of a business as well. The leaders that we place, vice presidents in companies that have a lot of revenues, and the term too big to fail, that means that that we as a society won't even allow, even after they've taken the biggest risks, we can't allow our leaders of businesses to to see the consequences of a slightly risky decision, and all of the pressures of folks that are employing people are too great, such that the smallest deviation from a typical business protocol says that risk is intolerable for the community that surrounds a business leader. This is why I find it vastly liberating to do business with and have conversations and consider taking actions and take actions with foreigners, with people from Malaysia and Brazil and Guatemala, and there are places in the world where their ordinary life has so many challenges, and they're used to navigating very extreme conditions. It's great one day, it's terrible the next day, such that they can't perceive real risk. They can only perceive opportunity. And those attitudes are powerful because they're grounded in real needs. Am I going to feed my family tomorrow? In any case, if you don't believe me, here's one thought experiment. We have now a big array of institutions giving courses. You can get a degree in entrepreneurship. You can get a degree in small business, but small business is not entrepreneurship. Not anymore. I'm saying small business is no longer entrepreneurship the way it is formulated in the US. Now it's fully defined and fully structured even before you step into the game. If someone goes to pursue a degree in entrepreneurship, they're saying before they've even had experience, they are seeking to find to be taught a template for making decisions. The purpose of this degree would be to eliminate the risk from entrepreneurship, which isn't possible. And who are you trying to please? That's the other signal. So when you go to get a degree in entrepreneurship, who is reading your resume to decide that you have approval to be an entrepreneur? Who are you trying to where do you get your where do you get your validation from? You need to be getting your validation from real life. I came, I saw, I took a risk, and it succeeded. And then I did the same thing 99 times with failures, and now I know which risks and which way to operate. This has to be intrinsic. It's between me and God. And that's why I think that you don't capture the same inspiration as we used to looking at the stories of the past. The navigators and the people taking risks in the past world that we know they improved our world today. Now we've been sold the idea that we can we can just learn how to do things according to a template and then we'll be successful. This is how I see the way an economy relates to its developing and how easy it is for technology to meet needs. I think if you go to a country that is not developing because it's developed, like here, then creating technology and creating even abundance or profits through technology does not put you very close to meeting needs. And it does put you very close to satisfying greeds. And then the further you go towards a country that is very much developing rapidly, then you're closer. It's easy for this technology entrepreneur to meet needs, and maybe equally easy to satisfy greeds. And then if you go down to Nigeria, we have, I think, the maximum rate of development right now. I think Nigeria right now is developing faster than the USA ever developed because they have sufficient resources and they have incredible, powerful people. They speak multiple languages. They have natural resources. They just need, well, they're meeting their needs. That's the thing. But right now we have more internet, more technology that's available to every single one of them than ever was available to us when we were in the developing stage. And so this is moving fast. They're meeting needs, and anytime you come up with a technology, anytime you start a business, you are just inches away from being able to meet needs. And then you have the trust factor. It's like the society themselves, this is over long periods, society associates wealth with power and influence and politics and and war. And where here the society on average associates wealth with, wow, maybe good things are possible. And so when your cousin gets wealthy in Nigeria, then you are more likely to support your cousin in growing, expanding, gaining progress. Whereas here, I mean, I've personally witnessed this. People do not, on average, care to see me become successful in the USA. I don't have fans here. This is the hardest place for me to set up my YouTube, honestly, versus the culture that recognizes a lot more how doing something good, like creating a robot. You tell someone that they can have an iPhone in the USA, they don't see how that will help themselves, even though there are 1,000 ways that can help them schedule and prioritize and access information. But so same with a cell phone or a robot, whatever. People don't associate this stuff with meeting needs. Although this was the intention all my life anyway. So we need this population to be a big grounding stake inside of like my Scuttle organization, our organization. We need those attitudes. We need those intelligent players that I've already seen them in action. And from a technical standpoint, when you see the progress they make with $500, it's vastly further and faster than the progress I've seen when you give a USA. And I'm generalizing here, but I'm sorry, what I see students perform and achieve, or individuals with a given amount of cash, here it's just less most of the time by a huge margin. So we need Nigeria. I invented a water valve that saves water for farmers. It goes on the farm and it cannot break in the way that the other water valves are breaking, and therefore it can save water. And when I showed this to a farmer in my country, the farmer says, wow, you could get a patent. And when I show this to a farmer in Nigeria, he's going to say, wow, we could save water and grow more cattle. That's what's supposed to happen. So where is it that I'm getting these blue lines and these black lines? Well, remember back here when I showed you about all the different paths we have to take to successfully do business in the US? Yeah, that's a long blue line, and it's supposed to be short. So Dr. Zabuka is already a superhero. He already has his PhD in mechanical engineering, and then he made a travel all the way to Texas and lived here, learned about the robotics, and he's committed to creating this mechatronics lab using Scuttle and to enhance the opportunities for the students there in Nigeria. Phil's committed, but they don't know that they've made more progress with less resources than any of the teams that I've done engineering with, and that there's so many lessons to be learned. The real life stuff with trying to coordinate with suppliers and sending drawings that had to be unpacked from these CAD models. It's actually incredible. And the worries from the folks that are producing this content is that this isn't fantastic enough, and that this progress isn't amazing enough. This is how it looks to invest in a technology team in Nigeria. It is literally designed to grow. The organism is designed to grow. The place and the time was all designed to grow. That's what it does. And now let me show you what it's like to invest in an American technology company. What goal are you looking for? Hoping that it'll still shade you? Oh man, I got to get this wrapped up. Okay, so in any case, Phil's story is an incredible one and a gracious one, and he's been amazing. I have collaborators around the whole world that are amazing, and I can assess this because lucky for me, I have experience with manufacturing and at scale supplier sourcing and international business, and I've done the real legwork. And so to see exactly the people that we need right where they're supposed to be in the best environment for growth, it's like we need them. And they may or may not realize how much we need them right now, but when those guys come to spend time in the United States, they start to get the sense for it. Because I have multiple friends just this year who are grad students. They're from Nigeria. I met a couple of them who they graduated from FUTO, Federal University of Technology, Owerri, not that other organization that started only 20 years ago. Okay, and so yeah, there's so much to unpack and so much to share, and this is already way bigger than, see, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, this can't stop because all the documents are out and all the designs are out, and only the people, none of the business folks and the lawyers and the people that want to make money have any power to push it forward or to influence the engineers. All of the power is in the hands of the engineers. And I hope that's not seeming like an evil grimace, but I'm just really, really happy that we already have a formulation that says, yes, education will happen, and it will happen first. And yes, those who get educated are in very high demand for jobs. And yes, those who get educated are of the entrepreneurial mindset, and the ones that are of the entrepreneurial mindset immediately graduate with a tool in their hands that is the very best platform they could have to produce the next business with an autonomous robot. It's amazing. And there's been a whole lot of challenges too, but those have been more of personal struggles that hit me and some people close to me, but nothing that's gonna stop the engineering from expanding. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.